Going to move on to a Q&A now with all of our lovely speakers. So if you have any questions following the speeches we've just heard or any aspects of their work, feel free to just pop your hand up and unmute yourself, or if you want to type a question in the chat box, feel free to do so. And you can direct your questions at a specific speaker, or you can direct them at all of them. It's up to you. So I'll just keep an eye on the chat box. While everyone's thinking and typing their questions, I have a question, I guess, for all of you, if you want to, just to kick everything off. Are there any examples of organizations or maybe specific countries even that that do green jobs well, or that we can share best practice and take example from? I don't know if you've got any specific examples of of anywhere that's worked particularly well. So that's a question to all of you, if anyone wants to kick off.
I'm happy to chime in.
Yeah, go for it, Adele.
So good. In terms of doing actions and funding and kind of government support for actually doing things, the European Union is bang on the money with the kind of green skills and the green transition. And the US has actually done a really thorough piece of research about kind of the gaps in the industry and the kind of person power required and where those skills will be required. So there's a really good, quite accessible report there. So in terms of what we might need, in terms of what people will do, the US is really good. And in terms of actually doing green jobs and getting folk into those jobs, then the European Union is doing really well at that side.
Great, thanks, Adele. Yeah, that's really interesting. Is anything else springing to mind from Rachel, Emma, or Marielle? Okay, well, there's some questions coming through in the chat now. So the first one is from Dylan, who's asked, how do you all incorporate sustainability in your jobs? So I guess it'd be interesting to hear from all four of your different perspectives. You're all in lots of, slightly different roles. So Rachel, do you want to kick off first?
Sure, yeah. I think sustainability, it's becoming more ingrained in every aspect of people's jobs. You know, there's jobs that are changing, that are responding to the climate crisis and the transition. And as was mentioned, the just transition is really, really important. Personally, in my role, it's making sure that young people understand the green and sustainable jobs that are out there, and it's essentially linking them up with businesses that incorporate sustainability in their day-to-day roles, and making sure that it's just highlighted that there's so many different pathways to these jobs, and that there's a whole range of ways to get into them, and you know, everybody who is speaking today really showcased that. So yeah, I think sustainability is becoming more and more kind of not a silo. It's becoming spread out and kind of a real part of everybody's jobs, and companies are taking a lot more seriously and really embedding it across their operations, rather than just having one department that deals with that sort of thing.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Marielle, do you want to come in next?
Thank you. I was trying to reflect on how I take a kind of sustainable approach to my actual job, and I was like, maybe I'll just fluff that question. I think the pandemic's really highlighted for me and for us as an organisation just how wasteful perhaps we were in the past, and that actually it's given us an opportunity to reflect on how we could be far more sustainable in the way that we worked, you know, in terms of thinking about when we actually need to be going to meetings, and the fact that we've all spent 2 years at home and have managed, either without printers or without printers that chug out millions of reams of paper. But actually thinking about my role, it's primarily in trying to support youth work and the formal education sector to think about how we can support young people affected by poverty to improve their outcomes. And I'm really becoming more and more interested in climate sustainability and, you know, learning for sustainability and green jobs as an approach to enthuse and motivate young people to build the skills, to discover a sense of aspiration and motivation to do something different, to pursue their right to fair work. So I'm really interested in how we can continue to focus on those kind of transferable skills and to embed that within a bit more capacity building work across the youth work sector, to be learning from some of these fantastic examples. And I suppose bringing that kind of climate justice, to all, and actually make this is something that, all young people can engage in and prepare for a future with.
Thanks, Marielle. And the fact that you're here tonight as well, you're obviously, being involved in the Learning for Sustainability work that we're doing. And it's great to have different members of the team involved in the work we're doing within LFS. So yeah, thanks for being here. And Emma, do you want to come in about how you incorporate sustainability in your role as well?
Yeah, I think it's such a big topic, actually, where you could look to all areas, but what I really try to do is put at the heart of sort of the decisions I'm making. It's like, is this necessary? Where will this go with it? It's kind of, I think, as businesses, you think of certain things, is this profitable? Is this right? Is this legal? There's all these different sort of things you add. And I think sustainability is just another one of those important things you add on. Like, is this a correct thing to do for society, for the environment? And you kind of put that at the heart of everything you do. And I think it's a really important sort of topic to challenge people on at the moment. And I think that companies are introducing lots of new initiatives around the topic of sustainability, which is great, which gives you a lot more which gives you a lot more opportunity to be able to put it at the forefront of your day-to-day life and your day-to-day work.
Great, thanks, Emma. And Adele, over to you.
Yeah, I guess the last roles that I had working in the local authority, you can have this responsibility, and we're adapting to statutory change or changes to the law and policy, but also current research is that people are very clued in about climate change and willing, wanting to see things happen, but when it comes to actually changing their behaviours to do so, it's a little bit lower down on the scale. So it's a demonstration really of what changes you can make and how. So we do a lot of work, promoting electric vehicles, carpooling, promoting recycling, just still the basic things, but also how people can.
I think Adele's just breaking up slightly for me. I don't know if that's, sorry, Adele, I don't think we caught the last sort of couple of sentences of that, but we've got a hand up in the audience, so I'll go to you next. Is it Gyan? Is that how you pronounce your name?
It's Gyan. It's Gyan.
Gyan. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not turning on my camera because I'm having some technical problems, but yeah, I just wanted to ask like a general question to all the speakers. So I'm studying sustainability and climate change masters at uni, and I'm also volunteering for a climate change organization in Scotland. And my question is that, is it okay to not know what you want to do after graduation? So say I want to go into consulting in the long run, and I know it's not going to happen overnight, but like I do not know what else I could be doing or looking at. And I wanted to ask, is it okay to not know? Because like I know what I studied, I know what I like learning and working in, but what if I'm not able to find a common ground, where both those things meet?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's a common worry for a lot of young people. Rachel, do you want to take that one first?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for your question. Yeah, I would 100% think it's absolutely fine to not know what you're wanting to do. I think people change careers so much more frequently these days. It's unusual for people to stay in a role and that be their role until they retire. And what I think I found surprising when I first, so I studied geography at university, and then my first role after that was working in a cafe for a year because I couldn't find a job. But then I moved into an environmental consulting role, and I was working for Ramboll, which was a large global engineering consultancy firm. But what I found from joining there is that within just the one company, there were so many jobs I didn't even know existed. There was acoustic consultants, there was ecologists, there was engineers, there was specialist engineers. So sometimes you don't actually know that these jobs exist until you're in a role. So I guess my advice would be just talk to as many people as possible, because you may not know that the role that you actually want to do exists because you're not aware of it. Equally, you may not know what that is until you find out that there's a job that perfectly suits everything that you're interested in. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't worry if you're not sure what you want to do, and just having some kind of conversations and networking and come along to things like this are really useful for just to kind of navigate your way through that.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And Marielle, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, I absolutely agree with Rachel, but also I suppose just to build on that, again, to say, think of it as an ongoing learning journey. So actually it doesn't finish when your master's finishes, and there may be really valuable skills and experiences that you can build elsewhere, maybe not in the exact sector or the exact job that you want to end up in, but just going back to that idea of transferable skills. So thinking about how you can also make any job sustainable. So it may be that you could bring your interests into another industry or another kind of sector until you build up those skills, those experiences, those connections and networks like Rachel was talking about.
Great. And Adele, I just read in the chat that you're struggling with connection issues at the moment, but feel free to unmute if you have anything to add. And I know Emma's also had to hop off to another meeting. So I think we'll just go to one more question, which is from Liz in the chat. So this one I think is directed to you, Rachel. It's, will the My Climate Path be rolled out to other schools, or can we access resources? Liz is within DYW Perth and Kinross. And there's another question below that from someone based in Midlothian as well.
Great. Well, it's great to know that there's interest in it further afield. So yeah, as I said, My Climate Path was a pilot project across 3 developing the young workforce regions, and that was the first time that there's been a project that's crossed regional or across regions. But yes, the intention is that it will be rolled out nationally. I'm in conversations with the national DYW team currently just to explore how that can be done. So I would encourage, it would be obviously the next academic year, but I would encourage you to speak to the people in the national team and feed that up that you're interested, because I'm not sure exactly how it'll be rolled out, but if your DYW regions are keen, perhaps it could be certainly started in your region if it is going to be a staged rollout. I'm not exactly sure, but yes, certainly the intention is, and particularly the Climate Heroes initiative, that's one that I know is keen, is rolled out nationally as well. So every secondary school will have a Climate Hero matched to their school to kind of inspire young people in the pathways to green jobs and also bring that curriculum to life as well. So yeah, but I'm glad you're keen on it.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, that's really good to know. I think that's all we're going to have time for the Q&A. I'm sorry we didn't manage to get to everyone's questions, but we will be sharing all of the speakers' slides and contact details. So if you do want to reach out to any of them after today's webinar, then feel free to do so. And just a final massive thank you to all of our speakers, Adele, Rachel, Marielle, and Emma. It's been really interesting to hear all of your different perspectives on green employability. So thank you so much to all of you, and I'll pass back over to Freya.
Yeah, just to echo that, thank you so much to all of the speakers today. So just before we finish off this session, I just wanted to take us through a little activity that might be quite useful for the young people in the room to kind of carry out yourselves, or for any youth workers to do with your youth groups to help young people kind of have a think about where they might fit in the climate sector. So we want both young people and youth workers to leave the session today with a kind of clearer idea of how you'd go about improving your green employability skills and finding a job that will contribute to solving the climate crisis. So definitely one of the first steps towards this is having an idea of what type of green job interests you. So as we've seen kind of throughout all the speakers and throughout the webinar, there are definitely a lot of different types of green jobs to choose from. And yeah, I just wanted to talk us through an exercise that would hopefully help young people and youth workers to think about and clarify like where you'd fit in the climate sector. So the idea is to create a Venn diagram with 3 different overlapping circles. And in the first circle, as you can see on the screen, you'd kind of write down what you enjoy doing or things that make you happy. This can be any kind of activity, not just related to work or education. And then in the next circle, you'd write down what kind of things that you're good at, what skills that you already have. This can be any kind of activity. It could be a technical or creative skill, or anything else that you're good at. And then in the third circle, you'd write down some of the jobs that need doing in the climate sector. So this could include some of the ones that we've talked about in the webinar, or others that you've heard of, or if ones that you think should exist. So then the point in the middle, where the 3 circles overlap, is where you can start thinking about work that fulfills all 3 of these criteria. So it can just be a really good activity for young people to kind of start thinking through what types of jobs might suit them and what types of jobs might need people like them in them. And it can be a really good activity to kind of do by yourself, or to do as a group in a kind of youth work setting, and have as a kind of starting point for discussions about this. So the activities part of the climate emergency toolkit that Youth Thinking Keep Scotland Beautiful put together, and we'll put the link to it in the chat there, which kind of takes you through how to run it as a sort of workshop for young people, which will hopefully help some of the youth workers here just use it as for it to be helpful to you. So yeah, we're going to do this kind of all together, but we've kind of run out of time. So we'll just leave that to you to think about in your own time, because I think it really deserves more time than we've got here. So yeah, aside from that, we've kind of reached the end of the webinar for today. So I hope you found it helpful. I hope you found the speakers inspiring and as interesting as I found them. I've learned loads today already. So yeah, just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for coming along, and to our guest speakers for sharing their insights and their experiences of green employability. Another thing to say is, if you're a Young Scot member, if you have a Young Scot card, you can claim 200 rewards points for attending this webinar. So make sure you get a note of the code that we'll put in the chat, or on this slide here. So yeah, just thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, do let us know if you have any more questions, or if you want to get in touch with any of the speakers. We're going to be sharing their slides and the details after this by email. And we'll also share the recording as well. But yeah, thank you, everyone.